And we are active for the first time in a while. Salutations, class, and welcome back. Tonight is a very special night in which we'll be doing an instruction on how to play Goldlewis in Guilty Gear Strive. I've been playing this character for a bit more than a year, and while I am possibly thinking about picking up Zato, and I don't even know if he's going to be a new main, I have been playing this up for a while, and a lot of other peers have shown interest in playing Goldlewis, so here, I'm going to formally give everyone the knowledge I have of the game from the previous year I played. And don't worry, I'm not dropping the character altogether, but here I might get a little bit more perspective as I get to discuss what he does. Now, there's a lot of different things we'll be doing here. Let me go ahead and grab my list. And so we begin. So, first things first, for the most part, we're going to be using good old soul bad guy himself, since he might be used for a couple of DP setups and such. And expect him to be getting beaten up for the better part of this stream. So, there's a number of things we're going to be going over with, starting with the basics very first. The things that you would need to know from the beginning before you even start playing the character. Between each section of the stream afterwards, I will be taking a moment to ask any or to answer any questions you guys might have about the subject matter of the previous segment. So, starting us off here, the very first thing to even know about Goldlewis is, well, what kind of a character he is, and what you'll need in order to play him. And a formal welcome to Aaron, and my, well, most important student, Taco. I hope there's a lot of stuff that you'll be able to learn here today. So, Goldlewis is a heavy pressure character who mostly runs off of high and low mix-ups, using a lot of plus frames to try to get in a few strike throws if necessary. But for the most part, he can get to his win condition through just use of plus frames, chip damage, and opening up someone with a low or a high. Ah, my buttons have reset. Let me unplug. That tends to happen whenever I alt-tab. There we go. Now everything should work. So he uses a lot of chip damage and a lot of plus frames. Well, to be honest, Taco, you're the person who's asked me about it most, so I would say you are the person I'm looking forward to most in teaching. And welcome, James! This is a fighting game stream, but it's a bit different from our other usual fighting games. So sit back and relax. I am getting a lot of sibilance this evening. I'm trying to turn... Hold on. I got an idea. Ah, my microphone pattern was changed. That's why I sounded a lot different. Okay, sound should be a lot better now, and definitely a lot less sibilance. So, Goldlewis is strong for a number of good reasons. He's kind of playing a little bit of old Guilty Gear with the fact that his Okizeme is so strong, given that he gets to have so many hard knockdowns into a lot of very strong pressure options after he does so. And a lot of versatile options on top of that. As you'd expect of a heavy character, he has high health and high damage, and what he does, a little bit differently from other heavy characters, is he has a lot of disjoints. In every single instance the coffin is used as a hitbox, it does not have a hurt box. So every time you're hitting someone with that coffin, it's going to be disjointed. Now, of course, as you'd expect from a lot of other heavy characters, his weakness is that he has a large hurt box, so it's very hard for him to escape pressure. His mobility is pretty weak. He does have a dash, but it's kind of a slow one that takes a little bit to get going. He has no double jump, so you will have to get used to air dashes, and one thing you have to do a lot with him specifically is practice high jumping, which will be necessary to get out of a lot of pressure situations. Now, what you will need to play him is patience, for one, because anytime you get stuck blocking attacks in a corner, you will need to wait it out and possibly even wait to build meter to FD them out back into a range where you can fight them pretty well. If he's on defense, he's actually pretty weak at close range, since he has stubby defensive buttons that are slow or short range, or just generally lack the reward he'd want. Patience is one. The other thing that is completely non-negotiable is you will need execution. He has a lot of very, very difficult combos to get done, and you basically have to practice a lot of half circles, some of which are going to be inputs you don't learn for any other character. And as you'd expect of a heavy character as well, he's going to need a few hard reads. Luckily, you can get away with having a lot of high health, so you can make a lot of mistakes trying to fish for them. But if you do get a good knockdown, you can carry that to a victory. Either just KOing them outright, or getting enough Oki and pressure to where you can even chip them to death, which is something he has as a unique win condition. You see how much health he can take off with his Behemoth Typhoons, so he's dangerous even if your opponent's playing the game correctly. Any questions before we begin? You can't wait for Goldlewis to get a pentagram motion instant kill in the future. You know those exist, right? Have you ever played, what's it called? Arcana Heart 3. That's a game that I want to see get a lot more representation, but that's not really a game you can tell people that you play. It's a little bit sussy, but I think it has a lot of cool things to offer to the rest of the FGC. Moody here is actually another very, very good Goldlewis player. I'll go ahead and give him a shout out. Very relaxed vibes on his end, and he just had his formal debut. Death by chip damage is not a unique win condition, signed a Nago main. Nago's chip damage is maybe about half as strong as Goldlewis's is, and he has other ways to open you up, such as the command grab, for example. Alright, any questions about the character fundamentally before we begin? We will start by going over specials first, since specials are what make the character. Then we'll have another break for questions, if there's anything y'all need to know. Then we'll go over normals, then supers. And after that point, once we have a little bit of introduction to all of our moves, we will go over your combos that you want with him, and then we'll get onto the strategy towards the end of the stream, where using a lot of the information we have set up from our previous knowledge of his moves, we'll know exactly what you're supposed to do with him. And getting in late into the stream, I can talk about any specific things such as anti-Goldlewis tips, some of the more advanced and strange tech for him, and anything else you guys would have for questions. So, any before we begin? An excellent time for me to grab more of a drink just as well, so I will be right back. Enjoy the existential crisis. Oh wow, that really messed with the rigging. So, now we begin. The reason why we're starting with specials is, as you all know, Goldlewis is designed around one specific special. If you go ahead and anytime you want to review this chart again, we actually have a new stream command. If you type in !Behemoth, you'll get a link to a chart that shows off all the Behemoth Typhoons and where you'll want to use them. We'll be going over these in order, but first we'll start out with some basics to know about it, since Goldlewis as an entire character is designed around this one move and there's some nuances with it you might want to know before you begin. So, indeed, Taco. We'll be doing the meme very, very shortly. So, starting out, every one of them is a half circle input, and again, every time I Alt-Tab, it's going to reset my controls. Ah, phooey, perhaps I should just rebind the buttons on the Mixbox. Speaking of, actually, on the subject of execution, let me know who's using pad or Mixbox or Hitbox, and I will have advice on each kind of controller. I started out with a third-party Xbox-style gamepad for a while, and then later in December, I got a Mixbox that I'm playing this character with. So, every single Behemoth Typhoon is a half-circle input ending with heavy slash. The way you get the input to work is you start in a direction and you have to be pressing H on the ending cardinal input. So, we'll go ahead and open up that controller display. Ah, there we go. Back down. Ah, that's behind chat. We'll bring it up at the top again. Especially since we don't need to worry about health bars in training mode. PS4 controller, do you use the stick or the D-pad? I think the D-pad might be somewhat analogous to a mix or a hitbox, but you'd have to use a thumb for it. It can be potentially difficult. So, and my inputs are going to be a lot cleaner because I'm on a Mixbox. You can see how I'm generally getting the cardinal directions for the endpoints there. You have a half circle in every possible direction that starts and ends with a cardinal direction, including the somewhat difficult inputs, actually very difficult inputs, starting with up and ending with down. So you have to have the starting input and the ending input, and then 2 of the 3 intermediate inputs. So any of the diagonals and the middle cardinal for there. Alright, stick on PS4 controller. Good, I do have a little bit of help there. So, every single one of them is going to have him swing the coffin in that direction. You're going to get a long active frame hitbox that's going to be disjointed. And each one of them has a slightly different set of applications. As a general rule, they are active throughout that duration. All of the grounded ones, guard crush, the later into the swing he hits, the more plus he'll be. And anytime he does actually land a hit, he will generally launch them in the direction of the swing. Each of them have a little bit of variance for each specific purpose. Also, every single one of them can be done in air, which will lower your gravity a little bit. So you can use it for baiting a few anti-airs if you have the right timing. And also to get a bit more horizontal momentum off of an air dash. Alright, starting from the beginning. And I will make sure Soul Bad Guy is not kicking me in the shins every single time he gets back up. Let's begin. So, looking at that Behemoth Typhoon chart, this is going to reset my buttons once again. Let me get that on another separate window. And buttons are good. Okay, so, starting from the top left, going right, and then down the page. Reading it like you would any sort of Western textbook. 6, 2, 4. We will actually notate all of these with the start, middle, and end cardinal input. And a lot of Goldlewis mains will talk about it this way, so a lot of you will have heard me on stream saying stuff like 268, or 624, or 684, 486, stuff like that. And this is how most people will talk about said Behemoth Typhoons. So the first 2 we're starting with are the combo enders, the one that start with a forward input. 624 here is generally the easiest one to do. It starts in front, has a 12 frame startup, and will generally launch the opponent forward. Let's go ahead and set Soul Bad Guy here to not guard. It's okay, he's a gear, so he'll be able to survive all the damage we put him through. Forward launch, good corner carry, but it does knock them far away from you. This is what a lot of beginner Goldlewises will do, but over time, you use this one less and less because it's obsoleted by 684 here, which does a couple of things that 624 does not do. So, 624 does keep its hitbox throughout the duration of the swing, but that does mean it sweeps down at your feet, where a lot of characters aren't going to be. What 684 does that's differently is it will swing over your head, meaning it will be able to hit anyone who's trying to jump in on you, or air dash over you. There's been a number of times in which I've actually had this hit behind me as someone was trying to escape the corner with an air dash. What this one does differently is it has an upwards launch, no matter where it hits. Even if it hits behind you, it's generally going to hit upward. You get a hard knockdown, and you can start running your Oki. So this one is incredibly important to your game plan. Now, the difficult part about this one is it does have an upwards input in there, meaning if you aren't buffering it or doing it quickly enough, you will get a jump. This is actually the reason I picked up a mix box, because it lets me spread the directional input over 3 different fingers. This is one of the execution requirements you'll have to get over. If you do want to get past floor 9, it's very important to be able to do this in neutral, as this is a very, very strong neutral tool. Generally, a Behemoth Typhoon is going to be safe if you can get it to hit your opponent, even if they block it. Both 624 and 684 are the only 2 Behemoth Typhoons that are minus if they hit right in front of you, and they're both -5, and at this distance that you'll be pushed out to about. You'll get a lot of block strings that can put you around right here or so. No one's gonna punish you with a 5-frame attack from here, except maybe Kai with a stun dipper. He might have too much distance to do that, but it's generally safe to end pressure with these. Even if they are minus, they are not minus at a distance where you can get hurt if you route into them properly. Next up on our list, we have 426, which has a very, very long reach. It is a mid that starts out behind him and sweeps into the front. This one will have a very long start to hit someone, but it will be pretty plus when it does land. As a PS4 player, you generally have to have a button beforehand before 684. If you are using the stick, actually, and it's a good thing Kuma's here, I actually have a little bit of advice. Missing out. Don't worry, Kuma. Serena's having a very, very important celebration. I'd say that one's honestly even more important. And, as a spoiler, if Serena happens to still be streaming at the end of the stream, we'll be rating her. Yeah, don't worry, Kuma. Go ahead and watch the VOD, and I will try to get a lot of information here that I can probably try to cut down into a much more watchable video. 426 here is very difficult to combo into off of anything except for a 2H or a counter hit 5H, because this one has such a long startup. It's mostly combo fodder. You can kind of use it in block strings if you want to be pushed out to a safe distance. Just as another demonstration, we will do a counter hit here. You can do this one off of a counter hit 5H and so. And it is a mid. It also has a few other niche uses. Your biggest concern for knowing what BT is the best for each situation, but you'll be covering that. Actually, Kuma, you weren't here when we announced it, but if you type !Behemoth or !Typhoon, it's pretty good after 6H in the corner. We will be discussing 6H once we get to the section about normals. But that is actually another good thing about the pressure. It's difficult to get into a 6H safely, but on a 6H hit or block, Image is 4-0 forward. Oh, wait, hold on. I know what's going on. I think that's the... Right, let me fix that. Thank you for informing me. Get my image over here. No, you're fine, Kuma. In fact, this is actually necessary, since it is something that we should be looking over. I set this up a lot earlier, then I noticed there was a typo, so I had to revise it. There we go. So if we try that again, both Behemoth and Typhoon will work. You can also do BT or just Behemoth Typhoon after an exclamation point. So now, there we go. You can go ahead and follow along this chart with me as we discuss. 426 here is used as combo fodder for the most part. You can get into it off of a 2H or a 6H if you're comboing into them. But generally, you're probably going to have a few niche uses for this in pressure. Mostly if you want to have something that reaches very far and generally leaves you safe. It's also the farthest reaching one horizontally. So, in neutral, you can use it to have a relatively safe hitbox in front of you with very little recovery afterwards, but you will have a lot of high startup accordingly. This one will vary on how plussed it is, depending on how late he hits into the swing. But it's mostly going to be plus 12 in a lot of the situations you set up for it. Next up on the list is 486. This is the slow overhead that brings you a little bit forward. This one probably has the most specific uses for it. It brings him forward when he uses it, so you can kind of use this as a pressure reset. It floor bounces when it lands, so you can continue a combo off of it. This one combos from 2H as well if you happen to be mid-screen. This is your most reliable way to combo off of 2H, since a 426 will launch them very, very far. Ah, welcome, Vodem. Right, I haven't even been doing the meme. This one is also an overhead, and it is plus 4. Plus 14. Not reading the chart correctly. It takes about 27 to 28 frames to reach, so it is reactable. And there's not really that many true block strings into it. You want to mix it up with a lot of your other options. But anytime you are trying to get back in, it is a good way to bring yourself back forward and give yourself a lot of plus frames to work with. And thank you for reminding me, Vodem. A welcome to you as well. In this Behemoth Typhoon, 248, this is probably the most niche one. I use this one generally the least. It has a very short-range hitbox in front of him. Very, very short range. And you generally can't confirm it from a lot of other block strings. What this one does is it is a 12 frame low that if it hits will cause a side switch. It's also plus 3 if they block it, so you can do a 248 with very little pushback into a close slash, which gives you a 4 frame gap and can frame trap most people. Everyone except for our 3 and 4 frame normal characters. What this also has a use for, and what I end up using it for more often, is if you can get If you can get a combo into it in the air, it works as a combo extender if your opponent is above and right in front of you. So it has two separate uses, but both of them are kind of niche. The most important Behemoth Typhoon, 268. In this one, he swings it downward, upward, and in front of him. This one generally has the largest number of active frames in front of him. It's a mid the entire time. If it hits, you get a decent launch that you can combo into 684. But what's most important about this one is you can get a true block string off of... Let's go ahead and have him do a DP on block. You can get a true block string off of close slash with this one, which means if you delay the input slightly... Yeah, let's have him just do a standing P. If you delay your input slightly, you can create a true frame trap out of any situation. It does have pretty good reach in front of him, as you can see. It's the only one that is plus that you can reliably block string off of 5H. Yeah, set that back to none again. So if someone blocks a 5H, you can block string into that one very, very safely and be reset back to plus. What is very special about this one is because it has a lot of different active frames in front of you, it will vary how plus it is. If you hit with this hitbox, the one right even behind him, when your hitboxes are touching, you'll be +3. If you hit a bit later, you can go to about +9 or +12 is what you'll usually get, especially if you route into it off of... If you route into it off of close slash, right here, it will be +9, meaning you can, against everyone but Chip, get a true frame trap into 684 or 624. And at the very tip, it will be +12 or +14. This one's generally good if you're just trying to grind risk gauge or get some plus frames or pressure. Since you can true block string into this from close slash, that's gonna be your most reliable block string if you just want to get some pressure in and get some plus frames. Chip damage, risk, all that. This is probably your best and most important Behemoth Typhoon. Now for the hard ones. So, in 842, this Behemoth Typhoon, he does a swing behind him that hits low, barely in front of his toes. This one has more range than 248 does, but it only has about 3 active frames in front of him, so it is hard to meaty with. It's also difficult to use in certain block strings. This one's also niche generally. Both of them that swing behind you have niche uses, but they are still very, very good. What's important about this one is it's +16. This is the most plus out of any Behemoth Typhoon you're going to get, and that gives you a lot of dangerous frame traps. You can go from 842 into 268 and get either a true block string, or if you time it right, 1 frame gaps and the like. Also, because it's +16, you can frame trap pretty reliably with 5H, or the next one will be going over. Also, on hit, it causes a low floor bounce, which means you can do a little combo off of it. And then my personal favorite, 862. This is the fast overhead, where in this Behemoth Typhoon, he starts out swinging above and then goes in front of him. This one has a lot of important uses. It's also the one you're going to most reliably open up your opponent with. It causes a hard knockdown on hit, which you can RC into to get a combo, or on counter hit, it gives you a very similar floor bounce to 842. This one has slightly varying frame data, just like 268, and it depends on if your opponent is standing or crouching, or if they're Giovanna, in which case, they're always crouching. Normally, you can get it about 21 frames on most characters. It'll be 23 if they're crouching, or if they're Giovanna. Luckily, this one will be plus 12 to plus 14, and even on the characters it takes longer to hit, it's going to be more plus. It also has generally very little pushback, so it's very good for Oki. Very, very threatening. Another specific use is it gives a 5-frame gap if you do it off of close slash. Yeah, a plus on block overhead. Very abusable, as Moody here says, on top of being nearly unreactable. There's actually a very fun little set of gimmicks you can do with it, such as, if you do, let's go ahead and have you block again. There's a few block strings I like to abuse with it. If you do 486 into 862, that's the double overhead, which should give a roughly 7 to 9 frame gap. So something that people would generally only be able to mash a punch button out of, and if you're at the right distance, you can probably catch them trying to mash out with any punch buttons. Also, and this one gets a lot of people, that is a 5-frame gap if they're standing, but since we get a guard crush here that's a low, it's generally going to be a 7-frame gap right here. But that's a very, very scary frame trap right there. And since 842 has very little pushback, you can do it 862 into it. So, that's an introduction to all of the Behemoth Typhoons. Every one of them is also usable in the mid-air, but they generally will launch at the same trajectory in mid-air. We do have a few exceptions. I will be going over the different ones here, but a lot quicker, because mostly they're used as combo enders and don't have very specific uses. 624 and 684 generally both launch at the same angle, same with 268. There are a few that are unique. 248 here actually has a small launch in front of you, and is a generally pretty good combo off of JK. You can get a launch there if you hit deep enough, especially off of a air dash. You can start a combo off of it. There's also 862, which are generally only usable after an air dash directly. This is what they did the modified gravity for. These, 862 and 486, generally will serve the same purpose. They're both a floor bounce directly in front of you. If you happen to hit someone with this, you can start one of your bread and butters off of it. But they're generally going to be hard to do unless you either start them directly after a jump, or after an air dash with your modified gravity. Ah, right, that reminds me. There's also another thing about 842 I forgot to mention. This one will side switch if you use it on someone in the air. So if someone does have you backed into a corner, for example, and you do get a good launch on them, you can push them into the corner, and then start your Oki from there. And welcome, Usagi. We're doing our Goldlewis lesson here. And we just got through the most important part, talking about each and every behemoth typhoon. Any other questions about that before we move on to drone? Mostly because I need to take a drink. So, the other really good special. You know it, and if you're not a Goldlewis main, you hate it. The drone here is usable as an Oki or kind of a let me take my turn in neutral tool. This one is changed according to a security gauge. Or cowboy meter, as Leviathan has called it in the past, which I think I might call it from here on out. Indeed, a favorite quote of mine. Go forth, my child. Hold down the neutral. So, at maximum security level, where it is best, the security gauge will be charging up slowly over time and doesn't have any special interactions. It's literally just there to prevent him from having such an oppressively powerful Oki tool on demand every single time. So, when it's full, it will travel a little bit more than full screen and will deal 4 hits. When you're at 1 bar security gauge, it deals 3 hits and goes roughly 75% of the screen.
Want to get in my way again?
There we go. Oh, did they buff it? It now goes full screen then. So, the full power one goes a little bit more than a full screen. It looks like they did buff, or at least I haven't gotten a chance to use, the level 1 very often. And then the last one, the least powerful option. You can get a 2-hit and very short range off of this one right here, which is generally pretty niche. They have it locked down to where you can't just basically always have a super powerful lockdown tool every time you get back to Oki. So what's important about this one is it's an incredibly active projectile, glides there along the ground, and what's important about it is it does not go away if Goldlewis is hit after the projectile is active. If someone hits you during the startup, before it starts moving horizontally, it will disappear. But if you can get it to start moving, and whenever you see the electric sparks coming off of it, which will only be happening off of the stronger versions, then it will not go away if you get hit out of it. Also, from the last patch that they did, the Season 2 patch, he's a lot quicker with the animation if he's at a higher security level. What's good about this is, since you can so reliably get a hard knockdown, you can very reliably set this up. And it will keep your opponent locked down with block stun as it's out. It also got 2 more buffs on top of the frame advantage change. Welcome, Viku. We're doing a tutorial stream here. 2 new buffs is it's always going to do a hard knockdown now, which is something it definitely needed. And if you use it in the corner, it will actually stay in the corner. So it's not going to drift off screen, and you can always use the block pressure from it. Now, there are some important strategies with this we will be going over later. For the most part, it's just generally, get a knockdown, set your drone out if you're close and have a good enough security level, and then once your opponent is blocking, you can start your block pressure off of it. Let me go ahead and check my notes here real quick. I guess we could go over that now instead of later when we're talking about pressure specifically. So, like we said earlier, all of the grounded Behemoth Typhoons cause a guard crush, but the block stun off of the drone will actually override guard crush. So, when you're doing block strings and Oki off of the drone here, you want to time your attacks to where your Behemoth Typhoon hits after the last hit of your drone. Because you have such a long animation on every one of these BTs, if it's not the very last hit, you can even get punished for using a move that should be plus. We'll go ahead and have Soul Bad Guy jab out of pressure here real quick. Not jumping P, we're looking for standing P. Get a throw, drone goes out, and you see that he gets a punish there in the top right. Whereas bit loose on timing there. There, we can get a frame trap. And in that case, it was a trade, since we used a +3 Behemoth Typhoon, and he had a 4-frame normal that we left a 4-frame gap with. Just came to say hi before you go break someone's legs. Good luck with that, Viku. We're basically doing the same thing here. So that should be everything to know about the drone. It's usable pretty well in neutral if you're at full screen. It'll be safe, you can force a turn, go behind it, since if someone tries to poke you through it, they'll probably get knocked down by the drone as well. And since they receive a hard knockdown, they'll probably get to act second. Then the other one is set up a drone and start your pressure off of that. What is a really, really good thing to do as a little trick, if you get a throw here in the corner, or any hard knockdown, you can set up drone, and then do a forward jump, and then that will be timed if you have a full drone, that is. Forward jump, then that one can time it to where you can do an 862 or an 842 as a true block string. Things are going to be a little bit different if you have a lower level security gauge, but generally you only want to use drone when it's at its maximum level. Sometimes you can get away with using it at the slightly less than optimal level. Generally, you don't want to end up using level 1, which, for the most part, since that first bar fills up so quickly, you're not going to have to worry about in most cases. And now for the last special. A lot of people overhype this one, and it's not nearly as good as you might think it is. You know it, you love it, it's the minigun. It has a startup depending on how much security gauge you have. And you fire 10 bullets times whatever your security level is. If you're at 1 level, you'll fire 10 bullets. If you wait for it to charge up a little bit, you'll fire 20. And if you wait for it to get to the maximum amount, it will have its fastest startup at 25 frames and shoot 30 bullets. Now, a lot of people think this is a good full screen tool. It is not. Even at its fastest speed, it's not a neutral tool. This is 25 frames for a startup before the bullet comes out, plus probably about maybe 4 frames or so for it to reach full screen. So at full screen, it's incredibly reactable at roughly the same time to hit as a fully charged dust. And in higher level play, you generally don't see people using charged dust too often, unless it's a character that has a very long-reaching one. So, especially given that they will be looking for this at full screen, it's incredibly telegraphed and it's not a neutral tool. What you do want to use this as is only on a hard read if you have level 3 security gauge. 6H is also 25 frames and extremely slow. And it doesn't have very many good ways to block string into it. So yeah, both of those moves, incredibly slow and incredibly niche. Now, if your opponent doesn't know the matchup too well, you can actually get away with trying to do this off of a hard read. You don't want to use minigun the instant it's available, but instead wait around for a bit, and if you can get a good read on when your opponent tries to use, say, a full screen projectile if they're Kai or if they're Leo, roughly half the cast that tries to use full screen projectiles, you can go for a hard read there. At level 3, it'll actually cause a hard knockdown as well. At level 2, it'll do a soft knockdown, and if you use it at its very lowest level, it doesn't knock down at all. Again, soft knockdown for level 2, and when it gets to the maximum level, which will take a while to charge up, it gets a hard knockdown that you can actually run Oki off of. What it's also usable for is at the end of a combo. So, since we have damage proration in Guilty Gear, and very low life totals of just 420 health, because it deals 30 hits that each will have a minimum of 1 damage, it's actually a very good combo finisher. You will get a sneak peek of this combo later, if I could do it a bit better. Right here, you can combo into it off of A2H, and I know a lot of y'all have seen me do this. So, look at his health right now. We've got 223 damage in this combo, and we missed a couple of bullets, but it will generally be able to add on a good amount of damage at the end of a combo there. Whereas another Behemoth Typhoon that late will generally do less damage, probably about half. It also causes a hard knockdown at level 3, so you have enough time to run up and do some of your weaker Oki, usually a 5k or a 2k. You're not going to be close enough to get another Behemoth Typhoon, unless your opponent's close to the wall. So kind of a niche special. Don't focus on the minigun too much. You'll need to learn a couple of routes where it's usable, but it's not a neutral tool. You will get punished if you just try to pop it out at anything other than max level and neutral immediately when it's available. That's it for our specials. Is there anything else you guys would like to know before we move on to normal attacks? Also, I could afford to bump up here just a little bit, since I keep drifting off screen. Alright, so now we're gonna go through normals. We're gonna do this one generally a lot quicker, since most of them just serve a purpose to route into a Behemoth Typhoon, but he has quite a few normals that are somewhat unorthodox, since this was a character designed for Strive's normals. His attacks were designed with this game's Gatling system in mind, and might be a little bit different from more traditional Guilty Gear characters. In order, starting with the punches. 5P here is kind of a weak niche move. Against most characters, it will only hit them if they're standing. It will barely ever hit, it probably won't hit any character except maybe Goldlewis running in on you. You're not gonna hit someone dashing at you with this. So, not a good neutral tool on against a grounded opponent. Where it does work is as an anti-air, since you see it does occupy a very good space in front of him with 7 frame startup. It's pretty good as a quick anti-air to throw out there. It's also usable to stabilize a few combos that we'll get to later. Like this, for example. That can get you a much easier route into a 684. It's also usable to buffer more difficult Behemoth Typhoons behind. It's also +3, but you're not going to get anyone to block this on the ground. Next up, 2P. This is his fastest normal, with 5 frames of startup, and you see how it's both incredibly stubby and does not hit the ground in front of him. This is a 2P that loses to everyone's 6P. This one's only usable if your opponent's doing pressure that can be mashed out of. It's also usable as a low-profile anti-air, since this one does have a slight disjoint on it. You can't hit the tip of his elbow. What's also interesting about this one is it is +3. I think Goldlewis is the only character that actually has plus on block punches, as he is a pressure character after all. You see with the fact that we can chain 2 of them together, that is actually a link. Goldlewis, for some reason, can't cancel his punches into punches like every other character can. You can also use it to frame trap with a close slash against characters that aren't Soul Bad Guy. You can see we traded there against his 4 frame normal. If he uses a 5 frame normal instead, you get a counter hit. This is something I actually see Moody do quite a bit. You can frame trap with a 5P into a close slash there. Also, kind of unique to this move, it has 3 active frames and only 6 frames of recovery. It actually recovers pretty quickly, so if you really need a safe option against someone who's DPing a lot on Wake Up, you can use it as a meaty, and if you time it correctly, it will actually be safe to DPs. Used to be that you could only meaty on the very last frame, but I think the Season 2 patch, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the fastest DPs we have now are 9 frames. So if you meaty with this at all correctly, you'll be safe from a DP. Let's go ahead and have him randomly throw or DP for demonstration. We block the DP there. If he tries to throw us, we get a counter hit. Of course, that one we gotta punish, so that means we whiffed. It's generally hard to meaty with 3 frame normals, but even if your opponent backdashes, you'll recover pretty quickly to do other shenanigans. One of your more important normals, 2P. Go ahead and reset Mr. Bad Guy here. Now, 6P. This is a move that exists, unfortunately. Goldlewis, since he has such terrible defense, has by far the worst 6P in the game. 12 frames of startup, and that's only for the hitbox that's upwards. The hitbox on this move is roughly around the alien's elbow. They did actually let it extend further down with the whole claw swipe you see here in Season 2. But that one, I believe, is even later than frame 12. Let me check that one. I think it actually hits frame 14 at its lowest point. It's not a very good counterpoke. You have to use this one for a very hard read, because it's a very difficult move to get to work. hits slightly later on crouching opponents at frame 15. So, yeah, you have to hard read with this one. However, since its hitbox is so high, it's actually pretty good at an anti-air if someone's trying to get at you from above. A lot of characters have a 6p that hits in front of them. This one covers Goldlewis's head very reliably. $5K. This is Goldlewis's most unique normal, and one that breaks a lot of rules. 5K here has a surprising 9 active frames. It is a low, and it is disjointed for the active frames. So this one's actually usable as a low crush if your opponent's trying to do 2k pressure on you, or if you expect them to try to 2k out of pressure for a character that has good 2ks like, say, Eno or Axel or Bridget. You could be pressuring them in the corner, and then you can do a 5k in there if you're trying to catch them mashing with a 5-frame 5k. Like other 5ks, it's dash cancelable and jump cancelable, and it has uses out of these that will go over soon. It does not true block string into a lot of Goldlewis's stuff, except for the 2 Behemoth Typhoons that start with a 6. You can also reliably follow it up with 2D if you want a frame trap. It's generally useful for conditioning an opponent to block low and catching backdashes if someone does a lot of backdashes mid-screen. Go ahead and have Soul Bad Guy here do a backdash on Wake Up. Too early. There we go. You can see it hit him out of the backdash. It has more active frames than any character's backdash invincibility. Also, because it's active for 9 frames, it's pretty usable as a defensive button or a counter poke, especially against characters like Eno or Soul Bad Guy that try to do a lot of low profiling. And you still can't hit it on Wake Up. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to time in a lot of cases. I still get thrown out of it pretty often, but we'll be going over the better Oki move here pretty soon. 2K. Kind of a miserable button here. Goldlewis is different in that he has an 8-frame 5K, which is slower than most of the cast. It also has a hitbox that only goes out to his heels, so at the very tip, you will see he doesn't hit with the toes of his feet. It's only out to his heels. It is a pretty fast low for the range compared to his other normals. So if you don't have enough time to run up and do 5k or a Behemoth Typhoon, pretty good move to convince your opponent to block. Also good to frame trap with, since it has a nice little sweet spot of range. Also combos into 2D. It's usable in a couple of niche combo situations if you can't get a 5k. Overall, roughly interchangeable with 5k, except it trades the counter poke property for a bit more range. Now we get onto Far Slash, one of Goldlewis's better normals that they actually buffed in the Season 2 patch. Now, he moves forward a little bit. It'll be a little bit minus on block. It has a small disjoint at the end. No worries, Avid. This is not an important stream to catch unless you plan on playing Goldlewis. But you also didn't hear me say that since you're watching an advertisement. His knuckles are disjointed for this move, so it's gonna be a little bit difficult to punish. Overall, very good neutral tool. Don't overuse it. It's also 10 frames, which is very, very fast for a far slash, especially the distance that it reaches. Any time it hits, except for a few niche counter pokes. It's a very reliable combo into 684. Caught the tail end. This stream's only important if you want to learn Goldlewis. This is just an educational stream. Very reliable to combo into 684. On air hit, it actually blows them away. So, you do not want to use this in the air unless your opponent's in the corner. There you can still reliably combo into 684, but not mid-screen. They'll hit the ground first. Close slash. Goldlewis's is basically the same as everyone else's. 7 frame startup, 6 frames active, and +1 after the recent changes. You just like getting the Xander fix. Well, I'm happy to be here. My throat is starting to hurt already because I'm being a chatterbox. So yeah, there is a lot of talking to be doing on the stream. And once we get through the normals here, we will break to hydrate. Close slash is important for a lot of pressure. You can go into 2D reliably. You get a 5 frame gap with your fast overhead, meaning if characters try to jab out of it and they're not named Soul, Geo, or Chip, they'll actually trade with you. Let's go ahead and have them do a 5 frame crouching P. Oh, that's after hit. You get a trade there. Little hard to combo off of, especially since you're being hit out of it. In fact, it actually looks like you can't reliably combo off of it. Maybe with far slash there. Oh, that'll work. There we go. Okay, so if you are quick, even on a trade, you can still get a hard knockdown with it. So, this will generally be a pretty good pressure tool to use there, against most of the cast. Also, as I said, true block string into 268, or, if you delay it, you get a counter hit launch, so you can make it a true frame trap. If your opponent does not FD, you can use it to block string into 842. Right, that's still on hit. Clear that out. If your opponent's not FDing, it can go into your delayed load there. Generally pretty good for a lot of block string uses. You'll use this one a lot when you're resetting off of all your plus frames. Next on the list, 2S. This move is horrible, but it still does occasionally serve a purpose. Like I said, anytime the coffin is out there, it's disjointed, so the forward half of the coffin here does not have a hurt box. It's not very good as a counter poke because it's a measly 13 frame startup and has a lot of recovery behind it. Also, at very max distance, it does not combo into his best Behemoth Typhoons. So, this one, you can throw out very, very occasionally in neutral. Otherwise, it's usable as a sort of reliable way to use combo fodder if you need something that hits roughly that distance on an airborne opponent. since a standing far slash will knock them away. For example, that's a pretty easy to do bread and butter there. Next on the list, we have 5H. In comparison, actually, yeah, I guess we could talk about that here. I was gonna wait until we talked about neutral, but Moody does have good insight here. 684 here hits further is 1 frame faster, and like all the Behemoth Typhoons, is a hard knockdown. You can see at this distance, we do not get a 2S here, but we can get 684. The only advantage this has over 684 is slightly less duration. It's harder to punish on whiff, but you shouldn't be whiffing either of these moves anyway. Next up, 5H. Another niche move here, but they did buff it in Season 2. Now, it has a much farther range. You see the yellow sparks on the ground, and the little quake that he gives. That's roughly the range it has now. They buffed the range. It has 6 active frames, and is actually -2 if it hits on the very first frame, meaning if you use it as a meaty, you can actually make it plus. It's a very reliable frame trap from Close Slash. I think it should have only a 3 or 2 frame gap if you do it from Close Slash. It will reliably hit a lot of mashers. You see, we get a counter hit versus Soul Bad Guy standing 5p there. Now, you generally don't want to route into this. It does have its uses, but this is a niche move. All of Goldlewis's heavy slash moves are pretty niche, since, for the most part, you want to use that button for Behemoth Typhoon. It also causes a floor bounce on an airborne opponent, which gives you a reliable combo into 486. It's gonna be probably an easier frame trap to get, also if you want safe pressure. You can reliably hit with a 268 afterwards, for a very safe block string, and this pushes you back out into neutral, still with a few plus frames. Next up we have 2H. This is never to be used in neutral. This is only ever a combo move off of a wall bounce into an airborne opponent, or off of Close Slash if it successfully hits. So the only time you'll ever use this is if you hit with a Close Slash at close range. And it works either mid-screen or in the corner, and reliably sets up into a number of different combos. Yep, that is not 2H. Like I showed, it can combo into a minigun and reliably into even your slower Behemoth Typhoons. Next up, 6H. This is kind of a YOLO normal. It's very slow to start up. It is disjointed, but also, after Season 2, it does push him ahead. That forward momentum will carry into a Behemoth Typhoon. So, if you really need to get in on them, you can see at certain ranges, you can reliably do 486 off of it. Also, for even some of your slower ones, it will give you a pretty good block string, especially with all that extra forward momentum. It's usable in a few niche combos. but is generally unreliable. And in any situation that you can use 6H, usually it'll be easier to do a 5H or a 2H. This move does have a secret though, in that it is one of the only ways to combo into some of his slower attacks, including the minigun, since it causes a pretty far launch into a floor tumble. If, God forbid, you ever actually do get a counter hit with this,
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
you can combo into one of your less reliable supers, but we'll be discussing that later. That is it for our grounded normals. Any other... Oh, wait. We have the dust buttons. 2D. Pretty standard sweep. This one does move him forward slightly. On hit, you want to do 684 off of it. On block, you can get a pretty good block string with 268 there, which I think would be a true block string. Ah! Not at further ranges. So, if you hit from out here, you do want to be careful. But you can see, against a lot of jabs, it very reliably frame traps at certain distances. If I do it right here, however... Oh, maybe we were too slow. Yeah, it'll be about right here. It won't work. But a little bit farther or closer, you can get a pretty good frame trap there, which, even if they do block it, gives you a pretty reliable way to end pressure. And relatively safe. You can also get a pretty safe ender with 426 here, since that will push you away this far and still leave you plus. Overall, though, you really only use it as a second low to get a frame trap and make people respect your 5Ks and 2Ks. 5D does not exist. There is never a situation for you to use this move. 682 is one frame slower and is plus 12, as opposed to minus 15. And causes a floor bounce on counter hit. I don't even know if you can reliably combo after this on counter hit. Not 5p. Not even 2k. Yeah. Never use 5D. Ever. This move doesn't exist. That's it for our grounded buttons now. We will move on to air buttons, which generally have a lot of similar purposes. Starting off. JP. Pretty good air-to-air. Very good range for the speed that it has. You want to use this to intercept someone trying to jump in on you, or to hit someone out of the air. Goldlewis is, as I said, incapable of chaining his 5Ps into other 5Ps. So, you can see here, if I mash JP, you can't get other 5Ps off of it. With all of the aerial attacks, you generally want to combo them into another Behemoth Typhoon. So get used to doing that. Oh, right, we want him to jump, but not block. Pretty reliably, we'll always combo into 684 in the air. You won't get quite as good of a conversion off of 862. And generally, you can't expect to reliably hit 486, so you want to practice jump punch into 684. Next up, we have JK, which hits on both sides of him and can be used as a very reliable cross-up if you jump over someone for Oki. Overall, a generally good air button, as of the Season 2 patch, buffing his jump dust. It will combo into jump dust, but only if you hit very, very high up. If you try to use it versus a crouching opponent, it will not work against most characters about waist height. In that case, though, because aerial BT lowers your gravity, you can very reliably jump K into 684 if you're not moving forward. Or if you're very close, you can do a 248. Other than that, generally kind of the same as what you'd expect of a lot of jumping moves that hit directly below you. Oh, welcome Moray Dev. This is actually another very, very, very good Goldlewis who will also be able to provide some very good insight. You don't have to cancel immediately into Behemoth Typhoon after a JP air-to-air. Also true. You do have a little bit of leniency, but you do want to start it before you get too low to the ground. Next up we have Jump Slash, which is really only usable as an air-to-air. You can still get the BT after the JP recovery. I might not be having enough good execution for this. There we go. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit hard, but it is possible, and we just managed to do it there. That will also give you a much more reliable way to get a bit of a better frame advantage on knockdown. So JS here is only an air-to-air. It will whiff on a lot of standing opponents and will not hit basically any crouchers except for some of the big guys. This is usable as against someone who tries to jump over you a lot. Say, May, Ramlethal, and Milia all like to stay airborne. It has, I believe, 11 active frames, so it stays up there forever. Yeah, 11 active frames. If someone's in the air, you can very easily get them out with this. And, like with all of the coffin moves, it's disjointed. Also, pretty reliable if someone's trying to jump over your drone here. Let's go ahead and set that back to full. It'll hit enough above the drone that someone trying to jump over it will at least have to block the JS, and then likely will have to fall down and block the drone afterwards. And like with any of our other moves, confirm it into a BT every time. There's not any situations in which this works with a jump heavy slash or a jump dust, aside from dust combos, but like I told you, never use 5D. Next up we have JH, which is the big brother to JK here. Also cancels into JD, but that only happens if you hit at the very apex of his jump. It does hit behind him, so it's a very good cross-up move. Has a little bit of an extended hitbox vertically downward close to you, so you can still use it to cover jumps while still maintaining pressure, if they don't. And since they're supposed to be blocking high... you're right. Hold on. Let me look at that hitbox. Yeah, he has a hitbox on his elbows here. 5H here is a very good cross-up button and Oki button. Off of an air dash, you can get a sneaky cross-up off of a forward jump. If you do a neutral jump, you can get a safe jump on the same side. Also, if you have conditioned your opponent to wake up with a standing block, hitting it early, you can follow up with one of your Behemoth Typhoons that start behind you as a very reliable way to get a cross-up. With the right momentum, you can even get someone to start a DP while you're on the same side, and then have a cross-up out for when their DP actually is on its way. Too late, or too early. There's the safe jump. With just the right spacing, you can actually make that DP with. There you go. So, very usable as an anti-DP weapon. Unless your opponent's Leo, because Leo just gets to do that. So, JH, you generally want to use for Oki. It can also be used as an evasive normal if someone's trying to low profile you, but is moving forward enough to where you can't hit them with your best normal that we'll be talking about, JD here. This is already his best button and what his entire neutral revolves around. It also got buffed even further in the most recent patch. It's incredibly far and incredibly low for an air button. 10 startup and 10 active, so it's also a very reliable safe jump. It will hit reliably meaty if you do it off of a very quick air dash there. Reliably confirms into most DPs. And it does hit, not DP, BT. It does hit low enough that off of a lot of combos, you can get a pretty good finish, follow-up with an air BT off of it. Otherwise, if you do hit very low to the ground, you want to follow up with a grounded BT or a far slash into a grounded BT. Don't start it too low though, because if you start it in the air, you'll see he actually starts it there and then lands before it comes out. You want to delay it to where you get it after he touches the ground. And you can get a true combo into that. A lot of your neutral is going to revolve around this, and we will discuss about that more once we get to the neutral after a few more bits of this. Don't use this all the time. This is your best button, but it is not entirely disjointed at the end. In fact, I think it still has... they give it a slight disjoint at the end, but it's not entirely disjointed. So, you do want to use the threat of this to get in, but not only this button, since it can still be reliably 6P'd. Say, for example, get a knockdown here. You can still be anti-aired, like with any other button. Now that we're done with our normals real quick, I will take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll be talking about supers, and then we'll move on to combo theory. Go ahead and leave any questions or other commentary for Moody and Moray Dev. Anyone else who'd have some advice to give on the Goldlewis front regarding our normals and specials so far. I will see you all in a few. And we are back. So, we'll be going over combos in a little bit. But real quick, a little introduction to his supers. You know it and you love it. Everyone recognizes down with the system. Pretty standard reversal super. Got a lot of damage potential, and it is startup invincible. What's different about this one is depending on how many circles you get out. Hold on, give me a second. That's still only one. I'm on a mixed box, so it might be a little hard to churn butter. We don't need to worry about level 2 very much. So, depending on how many circles you get out, you have a longer startup and potentially higher damage. There's 2 circles right there. You get the twinkle in his glasses if you get 2 circles at least. And if you get all 3, nope, that's still 2, I believe. There we go. Off of 3 circles, that's the single most damaging super in the game. But you do get a lot more startup with more circles. So, you generally never want to wake up with the level 3 version. That one's only level 2, and you see how it's even longer there. I believe every circle adds 4 frames of startup onto what is already an 11 frame move. Yeah, normally it is 10 frames. If you, it adds 5 frames for every circle. Normally it's a 10 frame startup, pretty standard for a reversal. If you do 2 circles, it's 15. And if you do, 3 circles, it's a 20 frame startup, which is incredibly slow. Don't use this as a wake up super button, unless it's like a last resort, and Leo's trying to run Oki or something. If your opponent's incredibly aggressive, and is always trying to launch a meaty, you can try it. What it does tend to work more reliably as a defensive button is if you can very quickly get a full circle out there, just 1 circle will do fine for a reversal. Other than that, there is a purpose to the 3 circle version. And that is, you'll get a lot more damage off of a wall break. And I know our 2 fellas in chat are going to bring this one up. So, another little niche use you have, which I'm probably not going to be able to reliably do on my mix box here, since I haven't practiced it. Hard for me to do. But, this will probably be discussed when we get to advanced techniques. You can purple RC the startup before the super flash, like how you can with, Faust. And you can use it as a way to give yourself a little bit of wake up invincibility, while still only costing 50 meter. That would be the super advanced niche use for it. Other than that, though, pretty standard reversal super. The other one...
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
This is honestly a meme. You really only have 2 uses for it. One, as either a win more button, if you're already very, very far ahead in your match, and you need to chip out your opponent with a last little block string. It will bring them closer to you.
Show me this guy's balls, please.
and let you chip out a bit more health. Or, if you're fighting a character who's trying to keep away while at low health,
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
you can use it as a way to force them to approach in neutral. Or at least block and get you closer so you can take your turn. Not really the best use of 50 meter. And it also depends on your security level, so really niche use super here. You're not going to spend meter for this one very often. Now that we're done with supers here, go ahead and look at my list here. Any questions before we begin talking about combo theory? Which Moray Dev might actually be able to correct me on a few things for. What is it, Scrunko? Ah, cats. He wants attention. Alright, so. Well, you're not obligated to join. You're not obligated to help Moray Dev, but if I do say something blatantly wrong, remind me. So, since Goldlewis has a little bit of flexibility in his combos, there's a few things you need to learn about what he does. In general, you can always... I don't think I have anything super wrong, but if there's something really, really wrong, please do let me know. This is mostly stuff I've collected off of playing the character myself. And yes, Sheikah, if you wanted to learn Goldlewis, this would be the stream. So, you always want to route into a hard knockdown. And in just about every case, you can reliably route into either 268 for a far knockdown, or 684 for a close knockdown. With the way that gravity scaling in this game works, you only want to use each Behemoth Typhoon once in a combo. You'll see I get a high launch there, and then a lower launch on the second 268. Then the third one doesn't even hit them until they're already on the ground. Every single Behemoth Typhoon will have increased gravity scaling if you hit with it multiple times. You see Soul Bad Guy falls there a little bit quicker after we hit him with two of them. Right there you see how quickly he drops. So, you do want to pay attention to which BTs you use for any of your long punish routes, but for the most part, most of these combos do already have different BTs that they'll use. If you have higher security level, you do want to try for a 684 so that you can get a drone set up and run some of your better Oki. If you don't plan on using a drone, or if you're far enough along that you do want to get someone pinned into the corner, 268 will launch them far and have a very, very good amount of time for you to get back in. If you're completely mid-screen, though, you won't get some of your best Oki options there. In general, if you want to push someone close to the corner, do a 268 ender. If you want to keep them close, route into 684 there. That's it for the general notes. Always route to hard knockdown, know what kind of knockdown you want, and only use each BT once if you can help it. Since the gravity scaling affects each BT that's used more than once, you'll get less advantageous Oki if you use a certain BT twice. Off of close slash if you get a combo started. If you're at close range, you can reliably 2H, and then that will give your bread and butter mid-screen and corner punishes. You've already seen the mid-screen one a lot. Close slash 2H, 486. micro dash into 5k, and then 684. If you have trouble with the 5k, you can pretty reliably get a 2k or a 2s in there. Sometimes, if you're slow, you might miss that. But 2s and 2k will be generally reliable for getting that continued. Off the top of my head, if you're at a farther distance, one that you can't get 2h at, you can do a 684 if you want the close knockdown, and again. That one will only work if you're at a close enough distance to probably hit with the 2h already. So if you're too far, you do want to try to route into 684 there. 684 will generally always be your most reliable combo ender, especially since it knocks them straight up and gives you your best Oki given that they stick close to you. Off of 5k and 2k, if you get a hit, you can do a 2d into a 684. At tip range, they might not... At furthest range, actually, I think it was... Yeah, at tip range on 5k. Or... I think it works on 2k, but at 5k, at its furthest range, you will not be able to get a 2d follow-up. Which you did see it whiff up there earlier. Yeah, they're at very, very tip range. It won't work like that. Otherwise, since 5k is kind of risky as a block string, you can't get any good true block strings into it off of 5k. You do want to put in a 2d there to get frame traps for anyone trying to mash on you. There is, I believe, at its fastest, still a 1 frame gap here. Right, set you to block. You can get a good counter hit there, and if you do get a counter hit, same as with some of your better launches. Same thing with 2k. 1 frame gap. Even at your earliest cancel. So, be careful doing these for players that like to mash DP. Off of your other starters, if you get a 5h, at some of the closer distances, you can get a 268 to go for a far knockdown. Otherwise, generally 684. Off of a counter hit 5h, mid-screen you can do 486. Towards the corner, you can combo into 426. Which will get you a wall bounce to go off of. Let's see. If you get an anti-air with 5p, you just go into 684. Whenever you don't know what to end with, always do 684. If you get a counter hit 6p, if you have maximum security level, you can use minigun. Actually, I think counter hit far slash can also do... Yeah, counter hit far slash can also do either of those options. And same thing with 6h. You actually get a really big combo off of that. If you're mid-screen, however, you can't reliably follow up with a BT on 6h. But you can follow up with minigun, or...
Google, show me this guy's balls.
If you really want to be funny, but you're not going to get a counter hit 6h anyway. That's not going to happen often at all. It doesn't frame trap from very many normals. Yeah, the minigun actually allows for a pickup afterwards. I actually haven't routed into this very often. What would you route off of this? Ah, I gotcha. Immediate 268. Otherwise, you can do a 684, as always. Yeah, there you go. Let's see. Off of a counter hit... Okay, so 684 or dash in 2k. Generally, the faster options are how you can pick up. If you get a counter hit 6p, if they're in the air, they will be knocked downwards and you can reliably get a 684 off of that. If you get a grounded counter hit 6p, you can go into 486 and all the other stuff you expect off of it. Any air normal, you get a BT off of. We already discussed which ones. If you're close enough with 5H or JH or JK, you can use 248. Otherwise, you generally want to use a Behemoth Typhoon that starts with a 6 input. If you do get 248 in your block strings off the side switch, you can go 5p into 684. Off of any other situation. Normal hit, you can get 684. Off of the big counter hits, you can try for 486 or 426. So that would be for any of our starters. For any of the stuff that we're talking about the middle, if you get an RC mid-screen, you can reliably do a 248 pickup. If you get a counter hit 268, that's also another option. Generally, if someone is directly above you and right in front of you, you can get an extension off of 248 there, since it will hit up and slightly ahead of you. Otherwise, if you do get a close 268, again, route into 684, sometimes you can get a microdash 5p into 684 if you get a medium range close slash confirm. Does need to be a 5p, and it is a little bit tight. When all else fails, you can generally get a 684 off of a close range one. You can't do it very reliably off of the very tip, though. In that case, you do just want to run up and get Oki. Anytime you can get a 2H mid-screen, either off of a close slash or in the air, 486, and then you can route into either a close hard knockdown or a far one. That looks to be it for mid-screen. For corner stuff, after you get a wall bounce, again, close slash into 248 is a reliable way to tack on a lot of extra damage. If you get a low launch, you can do a 5k to hit them out of the air if you don't think you can reliably get a close slash. Again, you don't want to try to fish for a far slash in the air. You can get a 684 off of it in the corner, but not very often. 5k will be a lot easier to get with its high active frames. If you're really brave, you can try for a 2S. or if you really don't have the frames to spare, 2K can also work. But in general, if they're high enough that they're above Goldlewis's shoulder, you can do a close slash into 248, and then follow off of that however you like. If they're very low, route into 5K, and then you can do a lot of other things off of that. And then combo enders. Off of anything you don't know, just do 684. That's your most reliable combo ender in any case. If you manage to get a low launch into a 5K, 684 for close, 268 for far. Something that has to be said about Roman cancel combos is if you do a RRC after Behemoth, the close slash to... Right. Actually, yeah, I was gonna go over that in a minute when we get to the full B&Bs. But, when you are doing, red Roman cancels mid-screen, or Roman cancels mid-screen, it's not going to be reliable that you can get a, close slash into 248. You do want to try to PRC with Goldlewis, since that will reliably let you get the 248 there. In general, you want to use red RC for pressure, and if you really need a confirm that you didn't know about. Other than that, for the corner bread and butter, after you get the launch there, you want to go close slash into another 268, which gives you your most reliable finisher there in the corner. This gives you enough time to churn full 3 circles and have it hit. And if you get your spacing right, you get the higher damage clean hit off of it. If you can't quite get that launch there, I think that's a, yeah, that would be a wall stick anyway. Yeah, if you get a low launch, depending on your spacing, you can pick up with a 5K on an airborne opponent into JK Jump Dust or JK Behemoth Typhoon. If you're far enough, you can do the full sequence. JK Jump Dust and then Behemoth Typhoon. This is if you cannot get your other route reliably. In general, if you can afford it, you don't want to end a wall stick combo with 684, unless you can get it with that immaculate spacing. Not a bad idea. Let's just go for something a little different. This is the situation you want to avoid. You don't want to wall stick with 624 or 684, especially at the beginning of their swings, because given the very large active time of those moves, it's going to be hard to follow up off of. Sometimes you can get that there. You aren't going to reliably get a butter churn super off of it. Yeah, especially not at this distance. So in general, if you are expecting a wall splat, you want to use one of the Behemoth Typhoons that does not start with a forward input, since you want to hit with them later into your swing and have more frames left over. So, with the theory out of the way, full combos that you'd want. Mid-screen punish if you can get a burst baited or a move whiffed or a cap anything off of a close slash starter. there's a good combo for you. If you have the execution, a Kara BT will leave you a little bit closer. This reliably lets you set up Oki and lets you get a meaty Behemoth Typhoon out there, which prevents someone from trying to jump out of your pressure. If they wake up and block, it does force them to block there, and then they have to block the drone following up. This will catch a lot of people trying to jump out of your pressure. If you want the corner carry instead, you can do a 268 launcher there. If you want a 50-meter extension, you probably need to practice that Kara BT. And then off of here, if you're close to the wall, you can do a 426, or if you're mid-screen, go for a Guts Crush with the minigun. Lots of damage, and lets you run up for a little bit of Oki afterwards. If you're close to the screen, though, to the edge of the screen, you will want to try to route into a 426, which will probably get a wall stick. Then you can reliably run up and Behemoth. Or go for a hard knockdown and then use wall pressure there. Off of the corner, your most reliable, not specific or niche combo will be close slash 2H 426, close slash 248. Then you run up into close slash 268. This works on everyone and is generally easy to get done off of any spacing that you can get the 2H to work there. There's some more niche combos, such as using a launch right there, and sometimes you can get a 248 if your timing there is very precise. And that usually works on only middle and lighter weights, not even on heavy weights, but on every weight class and every hurt box. This will be your most reliable wall combo here. If you can get any parts of these, use your combo theory and see if you can route into a wall bounce. Anytime you finish, it's generally going to look like that. Oh, we have ourselves... What do we got? Aw, thank you for the follow, Mika. Hope you're enjoying the time here. And let me know if you have any questions. I have so many tabs open here, so I will have to go back to my document here of notes. If you don't want a wall break, you can do the same thing, but instead do a 684 here, which gets a pretty high vertical launch, and still nets you good Oki. And you can get a good meaty off of that. Had to follow for the funny coffin enthusiast. I don't know if there's a better non-wall stick combo than that. I usually try to go for the full wall break because I'll generally have enough meter. Off of your wall stick bread and butter here, you can follow up with any Behemoth Typhoon for no use of meter. Or very reliable setup for a butter churn. I missed the full 3 circles. Thunderbird's a wall slump now. Oh, you can wall slump into Thunderbird. How do you wall slump with Goldlewis, though? I haven't actually seen if there's a way to reliably get that. You can set it so they run into it. That would actually be news to me. I'm not sure how we route that, though. If any of you would have insight there, let me know, because that would be me learning something new as well. Oh, well, the thing is, we need to set up a wall stick. Oh, yeah, the quote-unquote infinite. This one's niche, though. Especially considering you need running momentum off of it. And I don't even know how you can reliably do that in the corner. Yeah, that one's going to be hard to do, and I think that's the only way you can actually get a wall slump with him. But that's also a very, very niche situation. Yeah, not particularly reliable. You PRC after the first rep. We set it to rapid regeneration. Yeah, that's gonna keep pushing him back pretty hard. BRC works too. Huh. It's hard for me to get the second JD after that. BRC /486. Oh, well, it should have been /. That could also work. Kind of a diversion here. It's not very reliable to get a wall slump in general. You can get a pretty good knockdown into a drone setup and then use that for Oki. Also, be careful with your microdash spacing. Occasionally you will send them far flying forward if you hit them with the earlier hitbox of 248. So if you really need a hard knockdown, that will give you a delayed drone there. Otherwise, I do believe fitting in another close slash will actually have it set up meaty over them. Yeah, you really don't want to try for a wall slump. Your good knockdown routes there, if you want to get a good knockdown into the corner, will have the same starters. And then once you get the close slash into 248, do 684 if you want a little bit of space and want to start with a running normal, or if they have a DP you're watching out for, you can do a run up close slash into drone. Otherwise, you can also get a throw, set up drone reliably, and that would also be good corner Oki. Let's see. Only one more combo we're really needing. If you get a normal hit 842, you can follow up pretty reliably with a 5k. Then you can route that again into a 268 or a 684. Or if you get a counter hit 862, you can do the same thing. if you are quick enough about it. Dash 2S. If there's a situation we can hit 5k in, we want to do that. 5k actually has higher damage than 2S, funny enough. If you're really quick, you can get your full bread and butter off of those. I don't think you'll be in a good situation where you can reliably get it off of 8-4-2. It's going to be hard, and it will push them a bit farther away. So in general, if you want something reliable, you can do 5k off of it. Or 2k, or 2s. But 5k does the most damage out of all of those. This is one of those situations where you might need to use 2k if you want to get it reliably. But overall, you're probably not going to be close enough to hit with a close slash afterwards. Your most reliable combo follow-up here will be a 5k into either launcher that you prefer. That's it for some of our basic bread and butters. For everything else, we do want to use the combo theory we addressed for. So if you get a low launch where they're not going to be hit by close slash, you can do a 5k and route the rest of your combo accordingly. But that's just stuff you have to pay attention to, rather than combos for you to practice. It's going to vary with the spacing and timing you have. Like if you get a 6H from a far distance, like right at the tip, you can sometimes get a close slash. Or if you're very far along in a combo, there we go. Maybe that's a lot more reliable after the 6H changes. There will be a few situations in which you will get a launch and you'll be far enough out, especially versus heavier characters, that you can't reliably do a close slash in any case. You do want to get a 5k into a jump K, and as Moody here is recommending, bumping your other message for the corner B at B. I can't do that one reliably on Mixbox, but I do see that one done a lot. That one will reliably position you for a clean hit if you do the air BT off of that. The other thing you can do, and what I actually did before I changed buttons, a Kara BT will give you the same spacing. So that's it for our bread and butters. Now we'll be talking about the specific strategy. You can get more damage without meter there. How'd we do that then? There is one combo that's a little harder to land. There's this one if there's absolutely no damage on the wall, which actually would be a situation which we could reliably use 5k for. That one's going to be a bit harder. And I don't practice this one because this one's hard to get. Oh, off of counter hits, 6H, yeah, definitely possible. We're talking off of a close slash starter, which is going to be reliably for burst punishes, or off of a lot of frame traps, since there's going to be a lot of situations where off of plus frames you can run back in and do close slash. But off of a counter hit 6H, yeah. $295. $6H862. Can you get another 6H off of that? Or are you talking about just the initial 6H? Two 6-8. Yeah, that makes more sense. There we go. 294 on Soul Bad Guy. Alright, I can dig it. That does look like a combo you have to get a... Oh, hold on. Alright, very possible indeed. Counter hit 6Hs aren't going to happen very reliably though, given the incredibly high startup on the move. And the fact that it's a 25 frame mid, but worth a shot. Yeah, it's funny. My favorite funny combo is actually this one, after burst baits. Hold on. No need for counter hit. Off of a burst bait. Wait, no, it's 5H. $6H, Skyfish, 5H, 268, and then jump 684. Ooh, that's a big one. That's actually a new thing to learn. That does require level 3 Skyfish, but I like it. I'm gonna practice that one. Yeah, it's gonna be a little bit hard for me to land on the Mixbox. I will practice that one, however. Very cool. I learned something today. Alright. That's it for us talking about specific moves. Now we'll be getting on to neutral strategy, which it will depend on the person. But what I've managed to pick up in my time playing this game. One will start with neutral, since everyone starts at, well, neutral distance from each other. Round start is character dependent. Some of them you can reliably outpace their far slash with. Other characters like Baiken or Chip you have a little bit of trouble with. And there's some characters that you really have bad round starts against. After Skyfish for clean hit down to the system, I'll practice that and see if I can get that reliably. Yeah, Nago. Nago's DP can beat every single one of your round start options if you attack. So, you really have to just sit there and block versus Nago. So, round start's gonna be troublesome. And Goldlewis generally has pretty poor neutral. So you do have to be deliberate with how you do things. Each of these normals are high commitment. So you really need to make sure you don't whiff. Luckily, in any case with where if something gets blocked, you can reliably get a block string into 684. True block string, and you'll be -5, which is usually safe. Yeah, that's why I actually had so much trouble fighting against one of my friends, who was a Celestial level Nago. For the entirety of Season 1, I eventually got to just blocking round start, since his DP beats everything. So in neutral, your better pokes are going to be Far Slash, Jump Dust. If you need to be careful and make sure this gets blocked and not backdashed. 684 is also a really good way to fish out, since it hits very far and on successful hit gets a counter hit. His lower reaching attacks are generally not very good for neutral. You can use 5k defensively as a counter poke if someone's trying to hit you with a long range normal there. Sometimes 2S, but it's generally not going to be able to be followed up with. 2S is pretty unreliable in neutral. 2D also is not a good idea. So your low reaching moves you want to avoid. Your neutral instead is going to be around if someone is doing an attack on the ground. You want to evade it with a jump dust and use that for getting in. Hit deep with it and then get a 684 off of it. You don't want to always be doing jump dust and far slash because they're both beaten by 6p from your opponent. If your opponent's using a lot of 6p, or if you condition them for it, you can do an empty jump, which should be spaced at a distance where you can threaten with a jump dust, or if you don't use jump dust, you can empty jump and then, after there's 6p whiffs, follow up with whatever normal you like. 684 will beat a lot of cases at a distance where someone's trying to use a 6p versus far slash, or against a forward jump into an immediate jump dust. So it's going to be revolving around these normals for the most part, at optimal poking distance. Of course, you do want to spice it up a little bit, so if someone's being a little aggressive, you can throw out a 268 or a 426 to have a hitbox out there. If they are specifically waiting for you to whiff a move, you do want to dash block a lot, use a lot of empty jumps, versus evasive opponents. You want to try to get to around this range, close slash range where you can start using your more advanced mix-ups. Because at this range, they will try to keep backdashing out of range of your far slash, your 684, and your jump dust. So you will need to read your opponent, and if they're trying to wait for a whiff punish, or if they're being a little bit more aggressive, in which case you can put out some more reliable hitboxes. More niche neutral situations you can use 5H because of its counter poke disjoint. 6H if you really want to YOLO. Or those BTs if you want something that has a good hitbox in front of you. 684 will also generally cover anyone in the air. But do know, it does have a blind spot right in front of Goldlewis. There we go. Characters that aren't big bodies, if they're jumping very, very close to you, can jump in front of the first swing, and then they'll be right in front of you as it's going overhead. Then you can get punished. So when they're closer, you want to be able to be ready to do, as it's called for, 5p as an anti-air, 6p if they're closer, or with the right spacing. 684 is still probably your most important tool. When it comes to being on defense, good luck. Again, you want to be evasive with jump dust or jump H if you can get a jump out there. Otherwise, your only reliable mashing button will be 2p, occasionally 2k. If they're a character like Ramlethal, who loves to run up and 2k you, you can try to low crush them with a 5k if they've been pushed out and they're trying to reset pressure. Otherwise, try not to get into that situation. Goldlewis's defense is his weakest asset. When you get Oki, drone is a really good thing to set up if you have enough cowboy meter for it. Have a meaty behemoth typhoon off of there, which does force them to block the following drone. Otherwise, you can run up and do a meaty normal. If you don't have level 3 cowboy meter or want the corner push, off of a dash here you can still get a 5k if you want a good anti-backdash normal. A close slash will be faster, so you can probably get that reliably too. If you have enough timing, one of your strongest Oki tools will be whipping a 5p or 2p if you have the execution for it into a meaty 862. If you hit later with it, it will be far more plus. You do want to time it a little bit early to where it hits late into the swing. Somewhere around there. If you don't have the timing or spacing right, it's a lot easier to backdash. But overall, this is going to be a very good Oki option. If someone is very backdash happy, and you don't have the timing to reliably get an 862 out there, 268 is a very good anti-backdash tool. Will always leave you plus. And is generally a good option off of a dash. If you hit late with it as well, you'll get more plus frames. With its trajectory, with the right spacing, it will actually launch anyone trying to backdash out of your Oki. So get them to stop doing that if you get them hit with the 268. 684, reset. And keep doing your Oki off of that. If they are reliably blocking your 268, you can try for a 248, which will have only a few frames in front of you. So you need to get the spacing on this one really, really correct. You don't want to leave them enough space or time to wake up throw you. This one, because of its very few amount of frames in front of you, is also probably going to get backdashed a lot. So you want to be able to condition them to block high. And if they're doing that, then you can try for an 842. If you have the execution for it, and something I've been doing lately, meaty 486 will give you even more plus frames off of a hard knockdown. And generally give you a pretty good combo off of that. Other than that, for a niche option, you can try 248 if you want a fast low. Close slash will route into a lot of your pressure very easily, so you can use close slash for Oki. In the corner, If you get a drone set up out there, drone will reliably chill there in the corner for you. You can get wake up thrown if you try to do a button immediately after a corner throw. To demonstrate, after recovery. Throw, drone. You can actually get thrown out of that. To help out with meaty 486, you recommend holding Faultless Defense, as it will prevent you from jumping when you hold 7. Interesting. I think I can actually reliably get the 486 input down regardless. If you have a level 3 Thunderbird, let's go ahead and have him block. Dash cancel Thunderbird and throw. Okay, that's silly. Hold on. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get the car cancel on that one reliably. Especially since I rerouted a lot of my buttons. It's gonna be difficult for me. Beats anything that isn't reversal jump or super. Interesting. If you have level 3 Thunderbird, setting up a Thunderbird there and then doing a forward jump while blocking will let you block DPs. And also give you enough timing. That was a bit late. To let you do a meaty behemoth typhoon at the end of the block stun there. And someone's loudly revving their engine outside. That one also gives you a very good meaty setup. Again, if you have Thunderbird set up, you do want to wait to use your Behemoth Typhoon until they're in block stun from the last hit, because you need that guard crush. If you do it too early, they'll be able to get a punish on you, likely. Another trick, versus characters with meterless DPs. Let's actually have you... Hold on. If someone's doing DP and you get the right timing on it... I think I'm doing it a bit early, aren't I? If you have level 3, you can whiff a throw and still have enough time. You know what, I'm setting it on random, when really I should have it on one situation. Get a hard knockdown drone. You can still frame trap with a close slash after the throw with. If they are doing a DP meterless. And if I could just get the timing on it right. You can throw them into the drone. So if you really need a meterless DP safe setup, get a hard knockdown setup drone, and then throw with the right timing to catch a meterless DP. This will lose to wake up supers. But even if they block, you will be able to do a block string afterwards. Mid-screen Oki we've already discussed. Corner Oki generally is going to be the same. But you'll get a lot of those funny throw anti-DP setups in the corner. You will want to try to see if you can get a good hard knockdown. If you get it out there, then just do the usual stuff. Right, it's up here. Things you can do specifically in the corner. With a very late 862. You're supposed to be blocking. That's right. You can actually get an instant overhead off of 862 there, since you have them guard crushed in to the standing block from that. Jump K into Jump D or Behemoth Typhoon will let you do an instant overhead setup there. There's also another funny anti-DP setup I know. 5H into a delayed 426 will, with the right timing, clash against some DPs, or whiff against a few other ones. I think maybe I should be trying to do a, yeah, I'm not delaying it enough, I think. Yeah, like that. Okay, so I was actually doing it too early, I think. Then you can get your full combo off of that. Otherwise, you do get a reliable safe jump off of air dash JH with the right timing. You generally want to air dash at the apex of his jump. You can get a faster safe jump off of jump dust there. But otherwise, if they're not doing wake up DP, you want to reliably try a meaty overhead, or 268 if they're backdash happy mid-screen. If you're in the corner though, you can probably still reliably catch a backdash with an 862. You do need to get the timing right. Yeah. Same thing if you can get any other neutral knockdown that doesn't involve a throw. You don't need to be point blank for that. If you do get a 268 though, you get far more reward off of it. So, you're generally doing the same stuff for corner Oki, using plus frame overheads if you can abuse it. If they do block high enough, you can start trying for 842 or 5K. And if they're blocking both, then here's where we get to the pressure game. We'll go ahead and have Soul Bad Guy here block. We've hinted at it a little bit before in this stream. Pressure with Goldlewis is going to be his strong suit. You want to get someone in the corner and keep them blocking. What he has as his win condition is, yeah, you can get the high damage, or you can just chip them to death. One of your old reliables is going to be close slash into 268. If you do it with a little bit of a delay, it will catch mashers. With one of your best combo starters in the corner, off of counter hit 268. This is a mid though, so you will need to mix this up if they're not mashing. You can make it a true block string if you immediately cancel it, which will still leave you usually about +9 or +6. Off of that, you can try for another dash in, or off of that +9, you can use a 10 frame far slash to frame trap anything they're trying to do. At certain distances. Hold on. If you're out a little bit farther. Yeah, it's not going to work here. You can actually catch a few jab attempts off a consecutive 268 like that if they're not trying to hit you with longer range tools. And I think there's enough of a gap in there that some characters can hit you with 8 frame normals or so. But doing 268 into 268 is pretty reliable, depending on the spacing. If they are using Goldlewis's weakness, which is faultless defense, they can push you out a lot farther. Let's go ahead and set them to not counterattack here. Oh, that's after recovery. Yeah, set you to not do that. You see how far he gets pushed out by that. So, if they are doing a lot of faultless defense, that does mean they are looking for consecutive hits. So you can use that time to try to run back in with a 486, or stagger some of your pressure with just normals and push your way back in like that. In this case, you want to cancel into 486 a lot more often. This does bring you back in and will break down a lot of their meter. Or just dash cancel BT. You're talking about the car BT, which was actually what I was saving for last. Which I can't even reliably get down. And this is actually going to be for the very last part of the stream. I can't even reliably get this down. There we go. You'll see he gets pushed out a little less far there. You can also go back in really far with 486. Overall, if they're holding FD, they're going to push you out a lot. So, since they're focusing on that, you can use that to try to run back in. This is where 5K might be useful. Or far slash, so you can get a little bit of advantage off of all those plus frames. If you really have the execution, and we will talk about this more in a moment, Kara BT really can help you get back in. And that's actually part of the Kara BT that we'll be talking about here in a second, Moody. If you block close slash, he can't hit you with any of the low BTs afterwards. Unless... Yeah, it's something I'm gonna have to practice. There you go. So, if you really want the apex of Goldlewis tech, we'll be talking about the Kara BTs here in a little bit. But yeah, if they're FDing you a lot, try for just a regular close slash into running back in. You can even try a dash cancel off of just the close slash. Other than that, you can kind of do something a little bit more reliably with 2P. But if they are FDing you a lot, you kind of want that to happen, because that means they are wasting resources that they could use defensively. If you keep this up, and if they are trying to be very, very patient, then you can keep running back in like this. This is also where you want to use your meter. If they manage to push you back all the way out here, you can get back in with a Roman cancel into a 486. That's not a string they can mash out of. They can't mash out of /268 684. So if you keep that pressure up, especially with them trying to FD you away, you can try for a bit lighter pressure and then run back in. Generally, though, your most reliable way to frame trap would be off of any of your plus frames into 684, which will reset. If they're trying to jump a lot, / into 486 should try to get them a guard crush. Then off of that, you can keep your pressure up. Some Kara BTs are easier than others. We're actually getting to our very last part, Leviathan, since I think... Yeah, that's actually the end of what I'm talking about Goldlewis pressure. Oh, wait, one more thing. If you do manage to run them out of resources, and can reliably get back in, Guard Crush does not have throw protection. It's fine if they keep blocking, as long as you can keep getting back in to keep making them do block strings. But if you can muster it, especially if they're doing a lot of faultless defense, just run up and grab them. And then you're put back in the winning situation where you get all the strong Oki. So that should be generally it for the strategy. I'm not going to go over specifics of matchups or round starts, since that would be an entire other 2.5-hour stream. Do we have any questions? Because other than that, we have, well, the forbidden Goldlewis tech of Kara BT that we can talk about. With another drink to take. So, 5K and Close Slash both can be dash cancelled after the Season 2 patch. And off of the first, I think it's about 2 frames of this dash, you can special cancel. You'll notice this when you get the yellow sparks at the bottom. There's a few niche applications of this. One, you can get a really good block string into a 268 off of that. It'll give you forward momentum at the beginning of every BT, meaning, at the cost of about 2 frames, you can keep yourself in for longer, and even get some block strings that aren't otherwise possible, like 5K or Close Slash into the delayed low BT, which is going to be really, really hard to do. There you go. You see, even with him FDing, we can keep up the block string. Normally you can only do this if they're doing a normal block. You'll get even closer and have more frame advantage if you do stuff like that. Generally, Kara BT is going to be better for if they are trying to FD you out. It has a lot of extra speed in conjunction with 486 there. which you can use to easily set up a throw, or more shenanigans. Not only helps you get close during pressure, it's usable for a few combos as well, which I don't even think I'm going to reliably get. Right, set you to not block real quick. Certain advantages in frame data wise. Do tell me about that. I don't know all the nuances, because I can't even get it reliably down, as you can see. I've got a lot more practice to do with Funny Coffin Man. $5K on block into BT is actually mashable. And not a true block string. Hold on. Oh, you're talking about 268. I'm trying. Oh, up to 4 frames. So not so bad guy. Meaning we'll have to do crouching P. Well, hold on. Keep an eye out for the yellow sparks. I might have missed it, but allegedly we got it right there. There we go. Okay, so that will take a bit of practicing. Overall, though, I might have to do an even different controller binding to get this reliable with Goldlewis. Well, that's one of the uses for it. If they're not mashing it, as we said, lets you get back in during pressure. Hey, Sam. Yeah, you can also reliably get 862 from a longer distance. Yeah, you can technically get as Moray Dev here is saying, you technically get faster startup because the hitbox there for 268 starts out right in front of him, which you can't actually get off of a normal 5K block. However, if you get the dash momentum off that startup, and hey Sam, we're doing a tutorial here. We're talking about advanced Goldlewis tech since we're late enough in the stream. You see here, he actually hits a little bit earlier. About for what would be 3 frames earlier in the animation. At the cost of 1 or 2 frames of the dash startup. Also trades with 3F. I'll see if I can actually incorporate it into my strategy, but it's going to be a long way before I can do that. You can kill the bad guy. It's also going to be easier to do dash cancels for the BTs that have a forward input. It's really hard to do it with 862, but the dash that you do off of 5K or 5S is going to require the dash input to either be neutral if you use the dash macro, or forward. Yeah, I try to use dash buttons as well. However, since I've been playing Zato lately, I did change around the buttons on my Mixbox. So I'm gonna have to try to relearn some different wrist-breaking dexterity. GPVS is actually pretty great. I really hope it gets rollback soon. That would make my day, especially since it is a favorite of a number of friends of mine. Let's try that, see if we can get a counter hit on 5K. A little slow. Oh, with dash momentum. There we go! We got it! You can actually trade even with him, using his fastest normal. And if they're using a 5-framer... you get the really big combo off of it. Another thing, actually. You want to know why counter hit 268 is important?
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
You can combo into laser with it. If you want another really funny corner combo.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
That's one I haven't gotten enough practice on.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please. Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
I can probably do it more reliably on the other side. I don't practice this combo enough, and I haven't been playing enough Guilty Gear lately. But if you ever want a funny 100-meter combo,
Google, show me this guy's balls.
and you're supposed to be able to get a 486 after that,
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
okay, maybe if I start with a different one, because there's an even longer combo you can do off of it.
Google, show me this guy's balls.
Okay, so it's not 5H either. I might have to manually time a 486.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
If you time it just right, you can actually get a ground bounce off the 486 and then combo off that.
Google, show me this guy's
Ah,
balls,
I think I have an idea what you're talking about, Moray. Let's have you stop blocking. Wrong move.
Google, show me this guy's
Almost.
balls, please.
Nope, not quite. Ah, I think it does have to be off of 248 first. If you really needed a good look at Soul's abs,
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
or you all can kind of guess what variations you'd want on it.
I'm gonna kill you.
It's easier with some other characters to get a funny shot. But if you really wanted the swag on them,
Kill you.
Google, show me this
okay,
guy's
yeah,
balls,
I think we
please.
do want to get a... I think it might be more reliable off of a 268 there. Welcome, Fuse Hunter. We're generally done with lessons here. Now we're talking about funny meme combos.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
If we can get the spacing just right.
Google, show me this guy's balls,
Not
please.
close enough.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
Yeah, we do have to launch him higher up then, it looks like.
I'm gonna kill you.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please. Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
I wonder if there's even a way to get it to where you're actually just right in front of him.
I'm gonna kill you.
Google, show me this guy's balls.
We're just barely not given enough space.
Now blow the walls.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
Close enough. You can get the idea.
Now blow the walls off of this place.
There we go. Hold on.
Google, show me this.
Almost there. Almost. If you really wanted to meme on them.
This guy's balls, please.
See if I can get a better shot.
Watch my fine compliment.
Not quite.
I'm sober now.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
Yeah, if you really wanted to add insult to injury. Also, with some of them, I think it's a lot easier with, like, Kai, for an example. Ah, it's not gonna work off of that launch.
Watch my fine compilation.
Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
On certain animations, you can get it right there where, he's got his head right between their legs. But, that should be it for the funny meme combos. Mostly we heard to talk about practical applications, so... I think we kind of went over most of the stuff we have to be concerned with on Kara BT. If you really need to get in close, or if you have certain frame traps you're trying to do. That should be it for any of our questions then. Or, yeah, you know what? 3 hours. That's a good enough amount of time for a lesson, or a lecture, if you would. Do we have any further comments or questions? Memeing on people is absolutely, practical for the emotional damage. But that's only if you're far enough ahead you can spare it. The mental game is actually very important in fighting games, but I don't think I'd be able to reliably set that up in a tourney. Yeah. 3 hours. I'll see if I can splice it down or even make a much more concise version that goes over everything in a lot more detail. The VOD will remain up for a while, and I will be putting that on YouTube once it passes by a couple of days. I think it should go up roughly around Sunday. Mind gaming is an actual strat. Yes, Avid, given how much a fighting game relies on interaction between two people, conditioning and mind games and stuff like that are core to higher level gameplay. You can get by with just a few basic knowledge checks at a low level, but once you get really high up there, you do have to analyze your opponent during a match and get in a lot of specific strategies. What was I getting on about? Oh yeah, VOD will remain up, and I might try to make a shorter version, especially since 3 hours isn't going to be good enough for a guide that's supposed to show people the basics. This isn't supposed to handle every niche little situation, matchup, setup, and all that stuff. Whew. Sounds like we're done for questions then. In that case, I am tired because I've just been talking for 3 straight hours. So we're going to line up a raid, and I'll see what else we can get going on in here. I do believe, hopefully, Serena should still be celebrating. Aww. She was going to be my raid Aww, is she not streaming? She was gonna be my raid target! Wait. When is she having her celebration? She's doing it over the course of multiple days. In that case, thank you, Fuse Hunter. A forewarning for anyone who might be here who isn't here very often. Tomorrow is actually going to be a game dev stream, which we usually do on every Saturday. And by coincidence, I'm actually taking next week off completely. So after tomorrow's stream, you will not see me again until Monday, the 12th. And then we'll be getting back to the usual schedule then. But that is a very nice way to top off this week. And we'll probably be vibing with more relaxed game dev stuff tomorrow. Thank you very much, though, Fuse Hunter, and everyone else who's attended here. In any case, well, the new JoJo game is out, so let's go ahead and give Gyaru Garo a visit. Toto is streaming, true, but we are streaming a fighting game here at Avid, so let's keep it on the subject of fighting games. Go ahead and... what do we call it? We can just call it a coffin raid. Go ahead and give a coffin raid to Gyaru Garo, and otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow, which will be the last day before our week off. Thank you everyone for your attendance. Class, which now it actually was a class, is dismissed.